This is Amplify You, the podcast about you discovering your message and broadcasting it to the world. If you're a coach, author, or speaker, you'll want to tune in. If you're looking for the best return on your time investment to get your message out to the world in a bigger way, we're giving you full access and behind the scenes look of how we're running our podcast, how our clients have found success, and what you can do to launch your podcast today. The world needs your message. I'm Michelle Abraham, the host. Join my family as we unleash your unique genius and find the connections you need to launch your adventure today. Join us and let's get amplified. Hello, Amplify You, Michelle Abraham, your host here today. Today, I am joined on this behind the mic interview with Kevin Williams. Kevin, how are you doing today?
Great. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, we're so glad to have you here. Kevin is one of our newest podcasters. He's just launched the podcast, Legendary Dads, which is super awesome. So we're excited to have had the opportunity to work with Kevin through Steve Olsher's program, launching your podcast, which we help teach. And we're super excited to have Kevin now as a podcaster. So, Kevin, let me just start by asking you, tell us a little bit about your background. What made you want to start a podcast? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. The basic idea is I realized a number of years back, I guess, how much I love talking. Mm-hmm. And not just talking for the sake of hearing my voice, but I love being in front of a group and sharing anything of value that I know about, I guess. And that began as a youth pastor where I was giving sermons or talking at youth events and things like that. And I had some encouragement from people, and some of them were unexpected sources of encouragement that, hey, you're actually pretty good at this, even without any training. So there's that whole thing about enjoying speaking and enjoying teaching and sharing things. Mm-hmm. And then there's, the side where I don't want to just give information about anything. I've taught insurance courses and investing courses, which, I like teaching, but the information is not exciting. So, right. I started focusing more recently on what are the things about me, the things that I love, that I care about, that I can talk about and share with people, and hopefully engage in conversation with people on these things. And so over time, I realized podcasting seemed like a pretty cool idea. And it took me a while to really get down to it. But finally, I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to do this. I
love it.
Get it going.
It's like a birthing process. So it takes a while. Everything's got to be aligned right. And once you said, okay, let's do this, it was a really short amount of time that it took you to get this show up and running. And so I'm pretty impressed with how quickly you're able to get published, get launched, and get it out there. And so tell us a little bit about what that journey was like for you, from going from like the idea you had to actually now you have a podcast.
Yeah, well, there's a few things. Part of it is the content and the subject was one of the things that was holding me back. Mm-hmm. Really trying to decide what do I want to talk about and how do I want to focus that. So, but once I figured that out earlier this year, it was also then a matter of coming across the opportunity to work, ultimately with you guys through Steve Olsher's Launch Your Podcast program, to put it together. Because what I've learned is it's not rocket science, as they say. It can be figured out, but wow, it's so much better and easier if you have people who know what they're doing kind of walk you through, especially just the beginning of it and getting it up and running and all the details. And so it was, some of it was just kind of fortuitous timing in terms of the opportunity that was presented to work through Steve's program, and me having finally decided what it is I want to talk about and to share. So
yeah, that's great. And now having a podcast and having a platform that you can share on, what's that been like for you?
It's it's if everything else goes wrong, it's the one thing in my week that I'm looking forward to.
Awesome. I love hearing that. And you wouldn't be surprised how often I hear that too.
Yeah, well, because even yesterday I was having a crummy day kind of yesterday, but I had interview episode lined up, and I get to talk to this guy later today, and we'll have a great conversation, and so I just kind of I was able to hang on that, and because I've just loved it and I've been looking forward to it for so long that it's really it's a highlight of my week really at this point.
And that's when you know that you're on to the right topic, you're on to the right thing, is that you look forward to it. It's exciting. It's your favorite part of the week. I know my recording days are my highlights too. I get to meet all sorts of incredible people and talk to them. And yeah, that's really cool. So what are your plans? What's your hopes for Legendary Dads?
One of the hopes is that it will be an opportunity to initiate some sense of community and engagement with other dads, and also with some moms. Value the mother's perspective on the relationship and what's happening, but I suppose at its core that if nothing else happens, my plan is for it to always provide something of practical value. So I hear a lot of people speaking, so-called motivational speakers and a lot of podcasts that I listen to. There's a lot of great information being shared and ideas being shared. I find most often what for me is missing is that next step where it's like, okay, yes, that's the idea. You want to maintain this relationship with your kids so that they talk to you and share things. Yeah, but how did you actually do that? What was the conversation like? What were the things that you had to learn or to work through, or that you had to help them get through? What was the practical, real conversations that were happening that I can learn from and try to apply, going beyond that general concept to very practical helps? And so I want to make sure that every episode has, well, hopefully 3, 4, or 5, but at least a couple of very practical and useful conversations that share those details.
Yeah, so that you can actually like implement those things that you're learning about, actually show the takeaways, right? Yeah, I think that makes for a really great podcast episode, because you're not just learning for the sake of learning or listening for the sake of listening. You're actually then going to take some of what you learned, and then you can go and apply it to your life right away. And like, wow, think of the transformation that's going to come from the listeners if they actually go and do the work after the episodes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very cool. So, and in general, tell us a little bit about Legendary Dads. What does that mean to you, and what does that mean to the dads that want to be part of it?
That's an important question. I appreciate that. Because I realize that can be misconstrued. So I don't consider myself a legend, and I'm not looking for legends to be on the show. What to me it's about is the journey to becoming known as legend. But again, not in the world per se, but in your family. So the core, I suppose the most succinct way to put it is, I want to walk with a bunch of men who are learning how to leave such a legacy for their kids and for their family that it's something that can't be taken away. So it's not just a monetary legacy, it's a life legacy where they learn how to live life in such a way that they live their life to the fullest, and they learn how to share that with the rest of the world, so that your grandchildren, great-grandchildren will hear about how you started this process and you helped bring your family to this place, and essentially you become the legend that they talk about in terms of family and your impact on not only your family tree, but on the communities that your family lives in. That's kind of where I'm going with that.
I love it. Now, where did that come from? What made you all of a sudden wake up one day and want to aspire to start a movement around Legendary Dads?
Oh,
and I'm sure it wasn't you just woke up one day. I'm sure it was something you've been thinking about for a while.
I was in my bed one night and I had this dream. And the voice spoke to me and said, "Be a legend."
Are you legendary?
Yeah, as with a lot of things, there's a few factors that played into it. Um, one of the things is just my own life experience. So I've always, well, not anymore, but I guess for such a large part of my life, I felt as a boy and as a man, I always felt less than other men, and I never felt like I measured up. Um, and it was very vague as to why. Um, but as a parent, I had all these questions, and I felt kind of alone and not sure. And so as I began to deal with those issues and search through and answer those questions, I began to explore and realize that, okay, I'm not the only one. And especially with the coming of social media, where now you can hear everybody's thoughts and feelings more than you'd ever want to. I began to recognize, yeah, there's a lot of guys that are struggling with this. And so that was part of saying, okay, let's do something about that. Like, who's going to do something about that? And will it be me? And what will my part in that be? And as far as the family goes, yeah, I mean, when we have kids, I think most of us would hope all of us want to leave them with something that not only helps them have better life today, but will allow them to continue to have good life when we're gone. And whatever that good life is for you, I mean, that's part of the conversation. But that's I think some of the core experiences that kind of led me to this.
Yeah, and you've been married for 22 years and you have 4 kids yourself. So you're coming from the trenches of the parenting. And how old are your kids?
Our oldest girl is 19. And then we have a 16. Oh, she just turned 17. 14-year-old, those 3 girls now. So we have 3 teenage girls. And then our youngest is a boy, and he has just turned 12.
Awesome. Oh, he's living with 3 teenage girls. Lucky him. Awesome. Well, that's great. And, I love it when parents are like in the trenches and then can have a podcast that shares about their experiences. Cause it's like, where it's coming from, that right there with you kind of feeling, right?
Yeah. And, part of that I'll say is that I've always felt like, because again, we talk about the journey to getting here.
Yeah.
Part of it was that for some reason, I always assumed that my experience was different, and that surely other men and other dads and parents are not facing the exact same things. And somehow my experience must be unique. And I found out, some things are, but there's so much that is common, even to my own experience and journey, that others are experiencing. So that also kind of opens me up to saying, oh, okay, this is worth an open conversation and open sharing for that reason. Yeah,
especially for people who must feel so alone. Now, you've had some great interviews. What's been your favorite show so far? I know you're just new into the podcasting, a couple episodes in, but what's been your favorite one so far?
Oh, that's tough.
You say all of them. I love all of them.
Well, they're not all equal. I'll admit that. I suppose there's 2. I really enjoyed talking with Brian Ward, episode 2.
Oh, cool. Mm-hmm.
And I'd been listening, partly I think because I'd been listening to his podcast for over a year. So I kind of felt like I knew him, even though he had really no idea who I was.
Such a weird thing, isn't it? As a listener, you're like, I could go up and give them a hug and they would have no clue who I am.
Yeah. And that's one of the interesting things about podcasts.
Yeah. And you have another favorite one too?
Well, I suppose it might be number 4. I guess because I do like sharing my own thoughts and perspectives on the story. And that's what number 4 is. It's a deeper dive into some of that.
Nice.
And the lessons learned from that. So.
Awesome. Well, that's so great. So it sounds like your podcasting journey is off to a great start. And so I'm glad we can have you on this show like early on, and then we'll bring you back later on a year from now, and all the fun things that have happened with your show since then will be great to catch up with you then too. So any advice now that you've gone through that launching process for any of our audience members that might be thinking about starting a podcast still, they're still on the fence about it, you haven't pressed the record button yet, any words of wisdom for them?
I would say two things. One is, don't be so concerned about who's going to listen or who, if anybody's going to like it. Mm-hmm. My goodness, we have a worldwide audience now. So you will find the people, or they will find you, who want to hear your message and who want to hear it delivered in your way. It might not be a completely unique message, but you have a unique way of sharing it. So that's one thing. Just go for it. Get moving on it. The other thought is, if there's any way that you can, get some help with the start.
Yeah.
And that's what I appreciate about working with you guys, is that I don't have to commit to a whole long-term process, but getting that start off in the best way possible really just gives a great deal of peace and really helps kind of get that momentum going. So I would encourage anyone, if any way possible, to get some help.
Yeah, and hopefully that allows people to get through that finish line of launching the show with the support. So I appreciate you saying that, because it really does, I think, make a difference when you're trying to do it on your own. I tried to do it on my own for 4 years, as our audience knows, and it just wasn't very, very easy to do. So we love that you come through working with us and through Steve Olsher's Launch Podcast program. It's been so much fun to work with you and see this idea come to fruition. And now it's this living legacy that's out there, inspiring other legendary dads. So congratulations to you. Excited that you're here and have launched. And we wish you the best of luck. And we can't wait to bring you back on again and see what all has changed in the next year or so.
Well, thanks. I really appreciate you having me on, and it's been a pleasure working with you and to be a part of this, and hopefully encourage some other people to get going. That's awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks so much, Kevin, for being here today. All right, Amplify You family, go out there, have a wonderful day. And if you are inspired to start your show, make sure you reach out to us, amplifyyounetwork.com. Hit the contact button there, and we're happy to help you along the way. All right, take care, everyone. See you next week.